if I did not change my life, I was going to lose everything, including my life. After the second suicide attempt, I had shut myself in my garage with the car turned on, and I drank 2 six-packs of beer, and I was hoping I just, like, wouldn't wake up, right? It would be
Mhm.
the best thing ever, which only an alcoholic understands that, and my garage didn't seal, like, the bottom of my garage didn't seal, so it let just enough oxygen in and just enough carbon monoxide out, so when I woke up X number of hours later, I was still alive, and, like, my initial thought in my head was, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a failure," but then the immediate next thought was God has a plan for you, and there is a reason that you are still here. And I wish could say that, like, and that was my revelation, and I got sober, and life was awesome, but it didn't look like that.
Hey, everybody, this is Will Gordon from the Willpower Podcast, briefly coming on before this next excellent episode to remind you all that did you know that 76%, you heard that right, 76% of you that follow my content regularly have not subscribed to my channel yet, and I'm really wondering why that is. So if you could, the easiest and freest way to help support my show is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. Like it, share it, send it to people that you think it might help. Because that's what I'm doing here. I've been through it. I lost my liver. I lost my kidney. I had such a severe alcohol addiction that I feel you. Okay. I understand what you're going through. And I'm really hoping that these stories are helping. So if you want to hear these stories keep coming, then please hit that subscribe button. It'll be the best decision that you'll ever make. Thank you so much for supporting me. And I really hope you enjoyed this next episode. I heard it was a pretty good one. Take care, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. I'm so thrilled and thankful that you're here with me today. Today's guest is a woman who has walked through every parent's worst nightmare and somehow kept walking. Ashley Joe is a sober mom, a bonus mom, an author, and speaker who has now been sober for 5.5 years. She lost her child, watched her marriage end in public scandal, got sober anyway, and then on June 5th, 2023, while 4+ years into her own recovery, received the phone call that her ex-husband had died of a fentanyl overdose, leaving her to navigate fresh grief with their children. Out of that fire, she wrote the memoir that releases today, November 18th, called Tides of Grief, Waves of Grace, a raw, faith-shaking, faith-finding story of child loss, addiction on both sides of the marriage, rock bottoms, redemption and rebuilding and remarriage. If you ever wondered what sober grief feels like when the worst keeps coming, or how grace shows up when you're too mad to pray, this conversation is for you. We stole her on the exact date of her book baby as it hits the world today. So please welcome the incredibly resilient Ashley Joe. Welcome to the Willpower Podcast, Ashley. How are you today?
Hi, Will. I'm doing well. It's so good to be here. Thank you for that introduction.
Of course, of course. Was there anything that I got wrong in the introduction?
No, it's all right. Like, you're going and going, and I'm like, "Look at this. He
Yeah.
did his
You're like, look
research.
how
It's
impressive
great."
I am, right, Ashley?
You
You're like,
are,
wow,
for
I really
sure.
have gone through a lot. I've done a lot. So Ashley, so thank you very much for coming on the Willpower Podcast. My first question to you: when did you realize that your drinking wasn't, air quotes, coping anymore?
Oh my goodness, such a loaded question. So my drinking was like on again, off again, on again, off again. And I think for a long time, like many alcoholics do, I was like, I don't have a problem because I could go 3, 4, 5 days without drinking. And so in my mind, an alcoholic is someone who drinks nonstop because that's what I had seen. That's what I walked through with my ex husband. But when I really realized that I had a problem was when it got to the point where the best possible outcome for me would have been to simply drink myself to death and to not wake up.
Mm,
And so I had 2 instances of pretty severe suicidal ideation, 2 suicide attempts. And in that will, obviously, they were both unsuccessful because I'm still here today. But I realized if something didn't change, I wasn't going to be here. And for me, it took getting to that level of rock bottom to be willing to actually change my life.
yeah. Wow. I'm with you on, you were on this path of drinking yourself to death. I mean, that's what I was doing as well. I was drinking myself every single day as much as I could because I had the intention of just that's kinda like how I wanted to go because I just was such a burden on everyone, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah, so Ashley, if we could back up a little bit, could you tell us a little bit about your drinking history and just who you are?
for sure. So let's dive into my drinking history. I grew up in a Christian family, and that means I did not touch a drink until I left the home that I was raised in and I went to college.
Mm,
And so when I went to college, it was like the first time I had ever experienced a party or alcohol. And I was that wild girl at the party. There was no such thing as one drink. It was always like enough to get, completely and totally wasted and not remember the night because
mm,
why would you just have one drink? So maybe a sure sign that I was an alcoholic from the very beginning, right? But fast forward, I always say that my first child saved my life because I was on a road to destruction at a young age, at 19, when I was in college. I was drinking more than I should have and going to probably die if I hadn't stopped. And I got pregnant. And so there's this amazing thing where like you can't make the choice to stop for yourself, but you can make the choice to stop when all of a sudden you're growing a child inside.
yeah.
And so I stopped drinking when I was pregnant with her and got married and ended up getting married to someone who had a substance abuse problem. And I mean, it was literally like months into our marriage that his addiction reared its ugly head and he had to go to treatment. And so my first introduction to like sobriety and addiction and what this all looks like and means was through my husband at the time.
Wow.
And during that time, I did not drink at all, at all. And when my husband went to rehab, I was pregnant with our second child. We had 2 kids back to back, only 17 months apart, and I sent him off to rehab. Basically, it was an ultimatum, like, "You gotta change or
Yeah.
this isn't gonna work out." And while he's in rehab, I moved to a new house. I have no idea if we're gonna be able to stay together. We did. He committed to going to 365 meetings in 365 days. He finished a 30-day intensive program. And when he was 5 months sober, I gave birth to our second child, our son, Cornelius John Brewer. And then when he was 10 months sober on Case's 5-month birthday, um, he was diagnosed with a terminal disease called spinal muscular atrophy.
Oh my
And then fast forward another 5 months. So I'm 23 years old at this time, Will. Like
Oh
23,
my god.
I'm a baby. I have a newly sober husband. I have a 17-month-old and I have a infant child. So like
Wow.
stress
That
and
is
weight of the world on my
yeah.
shoulders. I didn't know how to handle that or how to navigate life. I was completely and totally in survival mode. Fast forward um, to January 8, 2009, that is when my son passed away. So at this point, my husband is only 15 months sober. I'm still 23. I have a 2-year-old. And I was just in survival mode for so long. And
Sounds like it.
because my marriage with Ryan started out with, a child out of wedlock, he's addicted to opiates and to alcohol. We have a baby. Baby is diagnosed with a terminal disease. Like statistically, the odds were stacked against us, right?
Yeah.
And over time, our marriage, we went through a series of what I call unfortunate moves. And as that was happening, our marriage started to fall apart more and more because we moved away from his home group. We moved away from our church, who was a solid support system for us. And the further and further we got away from home, the more and more we fell apart. But I am amazing at putting on this face and this mask and just pretending like everything's okay. So what I gave off to the world, the outside people, was like, we're fine. Nothing's wrong here. Everything's hunky dory. I don't know why you'd be worried about us, right? But deep down inside, we're falling apart. And I felt so much pressure to hold it together. So that around that time when we were falling apart in 2013 was when I started drinking. And I started drinking to be able to sleep. I could not sleep just because of
That was
everything
the
going
that
on.
was the main reason, just to get some rest.
100%, and, like, it kinda happened by accident where my husband brought me a six-pack of Wild Blue premium lager, and it's blueberry beer, and I tried it, and it was 8% alcohol, and
Oh,
I
man.
slept like a baby, and then what that turned into is, like, eventually 2 isn't enough, then it's gotta be 3, and then it's gotta be 4, and then it's gotta be 5, and then eventually that turned into a box of wine, which is like 5 bottles of wine, right? And then it's just full on dysfunction. And so that's kinda how I got into my journey of drinking. Yeah, it's a lot.
Wow. That's quite the story at 23. We haven't even gotten to the other parts of the story, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the weight and gravity of what you were going through, having a child, having another child, losing a child, having a husband with substance abuse issues, and then you coming from a
mhm,
Christian background, being released into the world, you're moving all over the place, things are chaotic, you're just trying to get some goddamn rest, it sounds like. And alcohol
right.
was the it was the medicine, it was the relief, right? It was that thing that got you to bed into sleep, but it was working against you for sure, as far as like being like a coping strategy, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and the irony of this is the whole time, Will, I'm working for like a holistic health company. And so
Oh,
that was one of the reasons, right? So funny, right? That was one of the reasons why I like alcohol was an acceptable form of self medication because society drinks, right?
yeah.
But like medicating to be able to sleep, that felt wrong to me. So it was this super
Mhm.
weird thing of like, there was something that I told myself in my brain that like, well, the world thinks drinking before bed. I mean, we call it a nightcap for a reason. That's normal. So this is okay. I had every reason to justify my behavior. And then, like you said, well, I always say I use like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory analogy. The world handed me a golden ticket when my
Mm,
son died. That was basically like you could act and behave any way. You could stay in bed all day, every day, and no one is going to blame you or fault you.
mm,
But at some point, I had to realize I had a choice about my life and I had a choice about his grief. And that was to either choose to live or choose to just like drown in my sorrow and drown in my grief. And, eventually my marriage with my husband fell completely apart. I ended up having a exit affair and we ended up separating. And then on top of that, and we had adopted a child at this time, so I still had 2 kids. Now on top of everything else, I find myself a single mom due to nobody's choice except my own, right? And that's when my drinking really started to tailspin
mm,
because now I wasn't just using alcohol to cope to sleep. Now I was using alcohol to cope with massive anxiety, massive depression. I have super high functioning undiagnosed ADHD, but the only way to calm the thoughts in my mind was to drink.
yeah.
And my mom always used to say to me, like when she finally found out I had a problem and I was sober, she was like, "Did you just drink to feel good?" And I'm like, "No, I drank to feel nothing."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right? I know. I get asked that question too. It's like, "Were you just getting loaded every day, like, having a" I'm like, "No, it wasn't a great time. It was a horrible time. It was a living in absolute hell. It was like Groundhog Day of just the worst imaginable way to live, you know? It was just constant chaos and drama and lack of money and lack of resources and just, like, fighting with my wife. It was just chaos every single day, every day. So how did your drinking like, what did that look like? I'm really curious to know, like, 'cause you mentioned, like, the blueberry beers and how 1 went from 2 and 2 went from 3 and then 3 went to 6, and then all of a sudden it's a box of wine, right? So that progressive lead up, like, tell me about that. What was that like?
Yeah, it started out as beer and then it went to wine and then I switched to vodka or Bacardi Limon, and, like, at my worst, I had a, 1.75 of Bacardi Limon or vodka, like, tucked underneath my bed skirt so that,
Mhm.
like, you wake up with the shakes and you need a drink, and people who aren't alcoholics don't understand, like, you
Right.
actually need a drink, like, you feel like you're dying.
Yep.
And so then when I started getting the shakes and I was drinking hard liquor, then I did all the things we alcoholics do of rationalizing, like, no, okay, I just can't drink hard liquor. Now I'm gonna go back to wine, right?
Yeah.
And so then I go back to wine, but enough was never enough. And then I switched from wine to beer, but I'm drinking like 36 to 42 beers a day. You know what I mean? Like,
No
and
way.
literally insane numbers of drinks because I again, I didn't know how to function in life,
Right.
and here's the bigger thing, I didn't want to function in life, like, I felt like I had dug myself into a hole that I did not know how to get out of, and I was so filled with shame, so filled with self-hatred, and also filled with, like, hating my life a little bit, like, there's not a lot fun about what we just walked through here that I did not know how to get
To get
out.
out. Oh my gosh, Ashley, you and I are so similar. Like the way we approach our drinking and the way that we're trying to make sense of it and like justify it, right? I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like when you get lost, that lost, it's like you're just so deep in the hole that you don't even know who you are anymore. You don't even know what you're doing. You're trying to justify, you're trying to make small little incremental changes, thinking that maybe this could you could fix it down the line with like the switching to the beers, to the wine, to the back to the hard stuff. Like I just once I got on the hard stuff, I knew that there wasn't like tapering off. It was just gonna get exponentially worse, right?
Yeah, and I tried tapering too, like, I literally created, like, schedules in my phone of, like, when I was allowed to drink my first beer, right? Because at that point, I was just trying to keep the shakes at bay, like, I have anxiety too, and so anxiety and withdrawal feel so freaking similar,
Similar, yeah.
right? So then I think I'm having an anxiety attack or a panic attack, but then I start panicking because I'm like, "Wait, I think it's withdrawal." So then I was like, "I'm gonna die if I stop drinking," right? Like,
Yeah.
I will literally die if I stop drinking. So I'm gonna self-taper my way through this, and my schedule's like, well, you know how that goes. All of a sudden, I'm like, well, I'm supposed to not have it until 5, but I'm going to have it at 4. And then I'm not going to have another one until 6. But then by 8, I'd had 7. You know what I mean? And it's like, what
Yeah.
am I doing here? I'm still getting drunk.
Yeah. Well, it's not sustainable. It's just
No,
not. It's just
no.
not. So what did that what when did it come to a T? Like what was the turning point?
Yeah. I realized that if I did not change my life, I was going to lose everything, including my life. Right.
Mhm.
After the second suicide attempt, I, had shut myself in my garage with the car turned on, and I drank 2, 6 packs of beer, and I was hoping I just, like, wouldn't wake up, right? It would be
Mhm.
the best thing ever, which only an alcoholic understands that,
Yeah.
and my garage didn't seal, like, the bottom of my garage didn't seal, so it let just enough oxygen in and just enough carbon monoxide out, so when I woke up X number of hours later, I was still alive, and, like, my initial thought in my head was, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a failure, I can't even kill myself." But then the immediate next thought was, God has a plan for you, and there is a reason that you are still here. And I wish could say that, like, and that was my revelation, and I got sober, and life was awesome. But it didn't look like that. For me, it
Yeah.
still looked like about 3, 4, 5 months of struggling. And then one day waking up on August 14 and having the courage to say, yesterday was my last day drinking ever. And I had tried the whole AA getting sober thing, had 90 days of sobriety under my belt multiple times and relapsed because COVID happened like hell.
Ugh.
All of a sudden, I'm in the middle of COVID and I'm an eighth grade teacher and a fifth grade teacher and a preschool teacher. But eventually, on August 14, I started an intensive outpatient treatment program that was all online. Because for me, one of the biggest barriers of entry was I wasn't willing to leave my kids because I knew they needed me, and even though I was bad Will, I felt like their dad was even
Worse.
worse.
Mhm.
Right? And so it was like I was kinda choosing, like, I was the better of 2 evils, and so for me to leave my kids and go to a 30-day program, that just wasn't an option. That maybe
Right.
meant losing my kids. So I did an IOP online, the entire thing from the comfort of my own home, right in the middle of, like, COVID chaos.
Did an IOP online, did it work? Did it work?
It absolutely, absolutely did, but I mean, like, a piece of it, it had to start here, you know what I mean? But what I loved about my IOP online is unlike traditional treatment where you're, like, removed from your environment, placed in a new environment, you figure it out there because your environment is different,
Right.
right? And then you go home and you struggle again. My IOP taught me how to be sober
Huh?
in a house that
Yeah.
used to be riddled with bottles of booze, that used to be filled with boxes of wine, that used to have a thing of Bacardi Limon or vodka underneath the bed skirt. They taught me how to get sober and stay sober in that environment. And for me, that's the most beautiful thing. I haven't had a drink since August 14 of 2020. And so, yeah, just
Wow.
exciting
Well,
stuff.
what a story, Ashley. Oh my gosh, there's so many common threads of you and I, as far as like the style that we were drinking and in trying to cope and manage our lives while being lost and just and I got goosebumps, Ashley, when you were telling us your tragically courageous story about trying to be in the garage with that little crack open. Oh my gosh, like my the hair on my back stood up because I was so moved by it because that was something at at large, that bigger play, like a meta kind of, a big thing that we don't really understand. But oh my gosh,
So
what a
what's
story.
crazy, Will, is like, you asked did my IOP work? My IOP is actually where my book was born, and that
Really?
is because one of the first things I had to do when I entered my IOP is I had to write my eulogy as though my life had ended from substance abuse.
Oof,
And then I had to
that's
give that eulogy to, like, my group, right? And so going through that, and then later in the program, they have you write your eulogy as though you lived a long, prosperous life and you left a legacy, right? And as I was writing those two routes and paths that addiction can take you down, like one that literally leads to death, disease, and destruction, and one that leads to life and others finding hope through your story. In that moment, I knew, like, here I am, like 3 weeks sober, and I'm like, I'm going to write a book someday. You know what I mean? But from that journey, the story was birthed because I knew I had to take all of the pain that I had gone through and I had to find a way to put purpose to that pain.
yeah.
Because if I couldn't put purpose to that pain, then it was all just for naught. And to me, I couldn't fathom like staying here in this world and not having a reason behind all the crap that I went through.
So that this IOP that you did it, I mean, it's funny because when you said it initially, it was like, well, how would that work, right? I mean, how could that work? But it's so true. It's like if you can learn how to be in your home, like where you are most of the time, right? And you now have these strategies and you have this different mindset and you're doing these very extensive, challenging, uh, 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 activities like writing a eulogy in two different ways, right? One could go the one, and that's such a what a wonderful practice that and helpful that could be. Scary, I'm sure, and reading out loud even scarier, right? But having to do that and go through a process like that, I can see how beneficial that could be.
Yeah, I mean, it forced me to look in the mirror, right? That's something we don't want to do when we're in the throes of addiction. Looking in the mirror is really hard because that
Mhm,
means if you look in the mirror, you have to admit that there's a problem, right?
mhm.
And admitting there's a problem kind of feels like, oh, there's something wrong with me, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that. But writing those two eulogies, it kind of forced me to look in the mirror and say, that's the path you were on. And on August 14, you made a choice and you opened up this other path over here. And now that's the path that you're on. And you get to help other people through your pain by turning that pain into purpose. You get to be a mom to your kids where before you were just a depressed, hurting individual. Like I saw that as a huge opportunity that I get to choose the way that this story goes. And sometimes that choice, not sometimes, most of the time, that choice means putting in a lot, and I mean a lot of really, really, really hard self work and self
Mhm.
reflection.
Yeah. There was a really interesting part of your story that I kinda wanted to circle back to, and that was when you mentioned the part of your journey when you were, relating yourself to your husband's, substance abuse and how you were kinda justifying how, "Well, at least I'm not, like, on,
I'm not
using
like him.
opiates." Yeah, I'm not like him, and you have someone you could point to. So, I know what that feels like because I have a close family member who also struggled with, substance abuse issues, and I would do the same thing because he was kinda more, really, just kind of it was more obvious. I'll just put it
Yeah,
that way. And that's what I would do. I would just kind of blame game. Well, look, I'm not that. I'm not that. So, and that's a very obvious and clear red flag when people start doing that, right?
for sure. For sure. And for me, I think because my only drug of choice was alcohol, that also made it even harder to admit that I had a problem because it's so socially acceptable. In fact, if you don't drink, then you're like the odd one out, right? So I'm like, well, A, I'm not on opiates, I'm not on heroin, I'm not on meth. All I'm doing is drinking.
Hmm.
And then to like make it worse, I could always, even in my worst moments, well, when I was drinking like 40 plus beers a day, I could figure out how to stay sober for between 2 to 5 days at a time, always. And so then I would like enter the first day of sobriety, and the second day you feel like hell. But then I get through day number 2 and I'm like, "See, I can quit on my own. I don't have a problem."
Hmm.
Because my ex-husband couldn't do that. He could not stop. The man would start drinking or using or whatever it was, and he'd literally disappear. You're like, "Where is he? What's
Yeah.
happening?" Because he
Yeah.
was not functional at all. And so when you have functional addiction, it's so much harder to quit because that
Yes.
first step of admitting that you have a problem is so hard to take.
Yeah. Because then you have to put all your cards on the table and you have to, like we said earlier, look yourself in the mirror and be like, oh God, I really have to do some serious work right now. And that's scary. Um, so I know what that feeling is like. And having the bottle of the Lemon under your bed, like I that was my MO. That I had alcohol surrounding me at every single instant in water bottles, Gatorade bottles, Nalgene bottles, under the bed, in sock drawers, in cereal boxes. Like no matter where I was, I had bottles just to make sure that I would never have to get to the withdrawal stage. And even though I would get there all the time, and I would just have to drink over and over again. But yeah,
Right.
that's so relatable. It's so relatable. So once you came to this actualization and you said like you did the eulogy and you had to read it and then all of a sudden you had this breakthrough, this profound moment of clarity. What was like your life like? Like how did it shift? Like what was your friends like? Did you have to make new friends? Like did you have to move things around? Like what did it was it an easy transition? Like tell me about that.
So being a single mom, yeah, I was like in
Can't
my
imagine it being
30s
easy.
when
Yeah.
I got sober. It's hard enough to have friends when you're a single mom. The relationship that actually had to change the most was my relationship with my now husband. And that's because when we were dating early on, he had no idea that I had an alcohol problem. He just thought I was a girl who could go and party and have fun. And then, like, I'd wake up the next day and I'd seem like I was fine, right? I hid it. When I say like I hid it so well, I mean, I hid it so well. It was like to the point where when I told him I was getting sober, it was kind of almost like,
Huh.
you she has a drinking problem? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like he knew something was wrong, but couldn't put his finger on what it was because 'cause I'd be crazy and then I'd suddenly be better. So there was a moment with him, Will, where I got sober, we stayed together, and I sat him down and I had the intention of being like, we have to be done because it felt unfair to me to ask him to change for me. But in
Mhm.
that moment, that's what I needed. And I had to sit him down and be like, look, I know we used to go and hang out with friends and drink and party. And I know we used to do other things together, and I can't do that anymore. And I think I even said to him, like, I don't want to have to ask you to change. So if this means we have to be done, that's fine, because I want you to feel like you can be who you are. And he was phenomenal. I mean, he can have a drink now, but, like, he almost quit drinking altogether just to support me and to
Mhm.
navigate through that with me. But the other thing, the biggest thing that had to change in me was my level of accountability with other human beings. I had to tell them what I was committing to hold myself accountable to it. And
Mhm.
so what that looked like through my IOP with my husband Josh and with my sister Kelsey would be after my sessions, I would sit down and I would basically give them a here's what we talked about. Here's what they told me I need to work on. Here's some crap that I did last week that I really just need to expose to you, because I had gotten so good at putting on that mask and pretending to be someone that I wasn't, that being vulnerable and transparent felt like, okay, crap, how do I do this? It felt
Mhm.
so foreign to me. And so I had to get to the point where I could say really, really hard things, things that are now in this book right here, so that I could heal. Because if I could not be honest with myself and honest with other human beings who loved me, who
What's the
could I be
point?
honest with?
Yeah, right. And I'm so glad that you approached it that way and you actually followed through with it, because I feel like that's a really easy one to just be like, I'm not saying shit to like anyone right now because that's really scary. And I don't want to tell them about just how much I'm drinking or just how much like, I was going through or just like just the utter turmoil that I was spiraling into. And that's really scary.
The thing I found though was like, it was so scary the first time, right? Like the first time you admit, like, to someone who's not an alcoholic that you're an alcoholic, you're like, "Oh god, they're gonna look at me like I have 17 heads. What is going on?" But what I found is, like, it gets easier every single time. And so, like, that first time is really, really scary and you don't know what you're gonna say and you don't know how they're gonna respond, but then the next time is a little bit easier and the next time is a little bit easier. And so over time, that level of, like, honesty and transparency just became a part of my new identity. I mean, now I wear my heart on my sleeve. I probably completely word vomit and overshare to, like, random strangers on an airplane because who knows? Maybe I can help them.
Yeah, it's so funny, actually. I do the same exact thing. So, like, we live in, like, a nice area here, and, there's a dog park, and it's funny, like, I used to be so, uh, closed off. Like, I wouldn't let anyone know about my drink. I wouldn't my mother found out that I had liver cirrhosis and I had 2 weeks left to live, and that's how much of an alcoholic I was while she was in the room with me and getting that information from the doctor. Like, that just like, that's how well I was hiding it, right? Like, I wasn't even on the radar of her yet, and she was just, like, in disbelief when the words came out. It's crazy that the faces that we wear, the masks that we put on as alcoholics, we just it's w the way and that's the thing when you get sober, it's like all that work that we were doing to hide it
Oh
and
my
to
god.
mask it, to wear 9,000 different faces and be 9,000 different personalities and try to fit the ones that hopefully will not, expose you to the world, right? It's just like it's just so much work, and it feels so mu good now to just wake up on, like, a Saturday morning and know where my shoes are, know where, like, where my wallet is, my phone. I didn't say anything embarrassing, like stuff like that. It's just so pleasant to wake up and feel like, put your shoulders down, sigh of relief, and then just kind of go on with your day instead of having to just live in just chaos all the time.
Mhm.
So sobriety doesn't fix grief. What did sober grief actually feel like day to day?
Oh man. Yeah, people ask me that a lot, like, "So when you got sober, was everything great?" And I'm
Right.
like, "Everything was horrible." Like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, part
Because
of
now
my
you're.
drinking was numbing, right?
Mhm.
Was keeping all of those feelings and those emotions at bay. So then I get sober and I have all of this grief, the grief of losing my son, the grief of losing my marriage, the grief of the fact that I felt like I was a horrible and shitty person because I had an affair. I went through an insane paternity scandal. I had all sorts of shame and stuff attached to that. And now all of a sudden I'm sober and I'm like, I have to feel those feelings.
Mhm.
And the cool part about my IOP, and this is why I think it worked for me, is like they taught me how to process through that in a transitional way. So, one of the things that I did, like getting sober for me, the power of distraction was really important because I did use alcohol to numb. I had to distract my brain. So, when I first got sober, I was working out like 3, 4 hours a day. And my therapist would keep like a finger on the pulse and he's like, Ashley, this isn't healthy, but you're not drinking. So let's just keep tabs on this and let's see like where you go. And let's work at like cutting that back and bringing that down. And eventually I got to a point where like now I work out like I say it's a normal person. I work out every day, but where I could process and not have to distract and begin to like feel some of those
Yeah.
things. And so the other thing I had to do in my IOP, I had to write my life story, like beginning to end. And then I had to share it with 60 strangers in a room, everything. And a piece of that for me just exposed where are like the dark hidden corners that I have tucked away that I convinced myself I had healed from that I haven't.
Mhm.
And I had to go and I had to work through those things so I could get to a point where I was healing. I don't think there's such a thing as healed. Like, here I am,
Mm.
I've healed, right?
Right.
It's a constant work and it's an action of healing on a regular basis, but it required me to like sit in those emotions that did not feel comfortable at all.
No, I can only imagine how difficult that was and challenging just to sit in to be sober and to have the gravity of those of the loss of a child and marriages and oh my gosh, I mean it's just it must have been so difficult to have to do that type of work and continue to do that kind of work. It doesn't like it's not like it goes away or the grieving gets any less, but it's more manageable. And I'm curious to know how is it a little bit more manageable for you now? Like,
think I think the big thing that makes it more manageable is the fact that I am so willing and able to share my story.
yeah,
Like, Will, when I did that, it was like I had
mm,
this like 1,000-pound weight on my shoulders and suddenly it's gone. It's like I said things like, I was involved in a paternity scandal and I didn't know who the dad was. And then we figured it out later. And I thought I was going to die the first time I said those words out loud. Right. But then, like, all of a sudden I say them and there is freedom because what I didn't realize is I was holding all of that inside. And so, what it looks like today and making it more manageable is instead of stuffing those things down for 15 years, I just speak them to life in the moment when possible. And I'm still hot headed, Will. Like you asked my husband's like, oh, she's so hot headed. She will argue and fight with anybody, which is true. I love to debate. But I have gotten really good at recognizing my emotions, naming my emotions, allowing myself to sit in them for like 90 seconds, and then we just move on.
yeah. I love that. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it. Because emotions are like I always say this, emotions are like waves, you know, you let them come crash on the beach and you also watch them go out into the ocean and kind of dissipate, right?
Yep.
But that doesn't define our behavior, right? Emotions will eventually go away, but our actions, our behaviors, those are kind of long lasting, our personality. So we got to be very mindful. So is that what you do? Do you practice a lot of mindfulness? Do you practice like meditation or anything like that? Or do you just kind of practice that, like just being aware of what you're feeling and knowing that this too shall pass?
So for me, the biggest thing is having routine and structure in my life. Routine and structure in my life gives me a sense of peace, right? And when I have routine and structure, I'm golden. And when I don't, it's like, ah,
Yeah.
Ashley's a little chaotic right now. So for me, like I wake up every morning at 5 o'clock. I go on a walk with my husband every morning at 5:20 a.m., no matter what the temperature is. And that's kind of like our time together and also getting our bodies like up and moving around. I think there is so much power in movement that people don't realize.
Movement is
To me,
medicine.
that's my big thing. It's not meditation, although I learned in my IOP because I have a really weird thing about meditation because I had a few yoga instructors that I did not love. I'll just say that.
Oh,
But
geez.
but
Oh my
my
gosh.
IOP therapist told me, Ashley, do you realize that like exercise is a form of meditation because you're not thinking about anything else
True.
except like the movements that you're doing. You're 100% present in that moment. And that's how I kind of operate.
Yeah. That was really interesting when you told the story about how your, therapist was like, "Ashley, you gotta this isn't healthy. You're working out 4 hours a day." Like, it's good that you threw yourself into something that was going to be, definitely, uh, good for you because your mind is occupied, your body is getting more, in tune with, like, being healthier and everything like that. So you threw yourself into that instead of, going the different direction, obviously, right?
Well, and I
Um,
always say you can't lose your kids for working out 4 hours a day, but you
right.
can lose your kids for drinking. So, like, I'll choose that all day long
Of course.
over drinking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is a kind of a personal question. Where was God when faith almost slipped away? And how did grace show back up?
Yeah, I think God was right there the entire time, and I think I was trying to push him away, and despite me trying to push him away, he relentlessly pursued me and was the one constant in my life. Like, if I look at my life and things that have come and things that have gone, like, the one thing that remained was God, and for me, I was so filled with, like, self-hatred and shame, like we've talked about,
Mhm.
that I could hear my story with someone else's name put on it, and I would have so much grace for that person. But because it was me, and I was born and raised in a Christian family, and I knew better, I couldn't have grace for myself. And there was, like, this moment, Will, where I realized God's grace covers you too, Ashley.
Yeah.
And so he never left. He was
Mhm.
always there, but I was trying and trying and trying to push him away. I was trying to say, I'm not worthy. I've done too much. I'm your daughter, but I have messed up one too many times. And he was just like, oh, Ashley, why are you doing this? I just love
Yeah.
you no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pre-forgiven, right? You're pre-forgiven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the book comes out today, which is just absolutely fantastic, and I'm so excited for you. And I hope the book just is a massive hit. But what's one page in the book you still can't read aloud without breaking apart?
Okay, so, at the very end of the book, it's not actually part of the book. I wrote letters to my family members, and, um, when I entered into, like, writing this book, which I really started hardcore, like, a year ago, even though I started it 5 years ago, I knew I probably needed to heal from my son Case dying. I knew I needed to heal from my affair. I knew I needed to heal from my paternity scandal. But the piece of the book that I entered thinking like I was fine and not realizing there was a lot of healing that needed to be done there is the letter that I wrote to my ex-husband who has since passed away from a fentanyl overdose. And I just had my book launch party and I read it and I've never read it without like tearing up because I think there's just there's so much there, right? I talked about the two paths that addiction can take.
Sure.
And after Ryan and I got divorced and he was really struggling with relapse after relapse after relapse, and I was wanting to help him. I felt like I was the thing that kept him sober because he was sober the entire 7 years that we were married.
Wow.
And I remember this moment where the therapist said to me, Ashley, your ex husband has a disease that he may very well one day lose his life to. And the sooner that you can accept that there is absolutely nothing you can do, to help him, he has to make that choice for himself, the sooner you're gonna find freedom. And I
Yeah.
did. I accepted it and I moved on and I found freedom, but I didn't think he would die, right? And
Mhm.
so then when that moment happened, it was 10 years later, almost like to the day from when my therapist had said that to me. It brought up this whole new stream of emotions
Sure.
that I had no idea was going on inside of me, right? So even though I've talked about, like, processing emotions, for me, it took the art of, like, sitting down and writing this letter to Ryan and being willing to share it with the world. Some of the things in the letter, Will, I had the opportunity to say to him before he died, but there are some things in the letter that I never got to say to him before he died.
And that must be absolutely heartbreaking, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
There's so much weight to that because he was sober when you were with him, and then, and then you guys obviously split, and then you find out eventually. How did it when you found out, like, tell me about that, like, what was that like for you?
Found out that he had passed or
Yeah,
found out that he was relapsing?
I guess both.
So, initially, when I found out that he relapsed was right away when we got divorced, and he had bouts of sobriety, but was never, like, sober again after that. So I carried a lot of guilt for that because it
Sure,
was like my affair ended our marriage. That's when Ryan relapsed. So one could conclude,
right.
therefore, Ashley is responsible for Ryan's relapse, even though that's not how it
It's
works,
not,
right? But,
yeah,
like,
it's not
that's
how,
the
right.
logical fallacy we believe in our minds.
Yeah,
um, so that was right after our marriage ended, but then when I found out that he passed away, I was actually, at work. I was sitting in this chair right here, and my son had gone to live with him in, I'll say the US Virgin Islands because that's where it is in the book, and he went to live with him really just because he needed the presence of a man, and he needed a dad in his life.
mm,
And so I was in a work meeting sitting right here, and he called me, my son, and I declined the call because he was 12, and the only reason he called me was when he needed more screen time or he needed to get into his phone or his Apple ID or something like that. My mom, what's my password,
yeah,
right?
right, right.
And so I hit decline, 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 and I'm continuing on in the meeting that I am leading. And then all of a sudden, text messages start popping up in the corner of my computer.
Yeah.
And it says, Mom, Mom, please answer. Not about technology. Dad just died.
Oh my gosh.
And
Mm,
so I, like, completely and totally like, I did not handle it well. I handled the death of my son, like, really, really well because I had so much time to process that.
sure,
This was a sudden, traumatic, and unexpected loss. I literally dissociated from my body. I fell off my chair. I was clawing at the ground that's right here, and I was just shrieking, like, literally shrieking. For anyone in my home, they had to have been terrified. But I'm up here and watching my body do this,
yeah, like
literally
dissociating, yeah,
100% dissociating. And like I learned later, like clawing at the ground is something you do when you're literally dissociated because you're trying to reground yourself and bring
yep,
yourself back to reality. And so eventually we got a hold of my son. I was able to talk to someone. They confirmed that yes, Ryan was dead. And we didn't know at the moment, like, why. I wasn't getting any information. My son is thousands of miles away. So then I had to immediately go into like mom mode of like, now how do I get my 12-year-old kid? Is
right,
he okay? Did he see this? Did he find him? Like, what is going on? And so many questions I couldn't get answered. But it was a type of grief that even though I'd gone through so much, I can't even put it to words, Will,
yeah,
because it's like how when like I didn't like him, like we didn't get along, we weren't married anymore, but that doesn't mean that death is the next best option, right?
yeah.
And so just
And also, sorry to interrupt, but, like, you're also, like, as someone who struggled with substance abuse yourself, like, you can feel that. You can relate to it. You understand the profound sadness of someone who's going through, withdrawal or, fentanyl of all the drugs is like the worst one because you never know how much is it, like how much fentanyl is in it. And people, they die all the time on it. So like dying from a substance too, that just must have been doubly as tragic as I don't know. It's just sad. It's just really sad.
And I think I had, like, what you're describing right there, I had, like, this extreme amount of empathy for what he must have
Right.
been going through
Yeah.
in that moment for life to get to the point where that's how it ends, right? And then, like, also the emotion of, like, "Thank God I'm sober," because can you imagine if I didn't have my crap together and I had to go find my kids and tell them their dad was dead, and then I'm drinking myself half to death every single night. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and that's where when you say, like, where was God when the faith almost slipped through your fingers? Like, he was there. He knew that I needed to be in a good place on June 5 of 2023, because if I wasn't, my
Right.
kids didn't have anyone left and
Yeah.
I had to find my kids and tell them about their dad. Like, it's just something you can't put to words and you can't fathom. And so all the emotions, the empathy for Ryan and what he must have been going through, the questions in my mind of, like, did I somehow cause this? The
Mhm.
guilt attached to that. And then, like, the extreme sorrow for my kids. Like, I walk through the loss of my son. I know what it's like to lose someone who means everything to you. And then to know that those are the feelings my kids are going to go through and that for the
Mm.
rest of their life, they don't have a dad. That when my daughter gets married someday, her birth dad, she has a stepdad and he's amazing, but her dad won't be here to
Yeah.
walk her down the aisle. Just devastating.
Yeah. It is devastating. Oh my gosh, Ashley. There's so much to your story and it's so tragic, but you're right. I mean, because I know what you're talking about. Like when my father passed away in 2024, I don't know, I was probably like a year sober. But if I wasn't sober, I don't know. I don't know. Because we were so close. So I really had to feel his loss. I had to, and I was one that found him. So I really had to feel it. I had to process it. I
Sorry.
had to do the work. It would have been easy to go right back to a bottle and numb all the pain away, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. I knew that it was something that I had to deal with, and I'm so thankful that that was something that I was sober. I was so thankful for that.
I can't imagine if I had gotten the news about Ryan and I wasn't sober. I mean, I don't think I'd
Mm.
be alive. I really,
Yeah,
really don't. Because how do you grapple with such grief when you're in the throes of addiction?
yeah. I mean, it's just like it's almost like it's an impulse. It's just like just get it quick and get the bad feelings to go away.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that's so tragic. So, thank you so much. This has been just a fabulous conversation, and you've been courageously just remarkable in the way that you're sharing. So, thank you so much. So, Ashley, to the mom white knuckling day 3 after a fentanyl loss, what do you whisper to them tonight?
Oh my goodness. One day at a time.
Yeah,
It's all that you can do. It really, you can't focus too far on the future, because if you focus too far on the future, it seems insurmountable. All that you can focus on is right now, today, this moment, this hour, this minute, this second.
yeah. This second, that's how you really you got to approach it, especially in the early days, right? You got to approach it. Now you're 5 years sober now.
Yes.
What's your favorite part about being sober?
Oh man, I get to live. Like, I wasn't living. It wasn't life. I don't know what I would call it, but it was not life. I get to live, I get to enjoy. Like, the thing about numbing is you don't feel the bad, but you don't feel the good either.
Yeah, you
And
don't.
and that's like the message that I would want people to hear if they've gone through crap in life is you don't get the good without the bad, and vice versa. If you numb the bad, you don't get the good. If you numb the good, you don't get the bad. Those emotions go together. If there wasn't hate, we wouldn't have love. If there wasn't happiness, we wouldn't have sadness. That's just how life goes.
My last question. If your son and your ex could read the book, what sentence, it doesn't have to be a sentence, but what sentence would wreck them in the best way?
Um, that is such a good
I'm really
question.
putting you on the spot, but that's why
Yeah,
I
you
wanted
are.
to end it. Well, it doesn't have to be a sentence. How about this?
You okay if I, like, just read a little part of the book?
Absolutely. I
So the
encourage it.
it's just, like, 3 short paragraphs, but this I think is, it's the very end too, so sorry. I'm not giving away the entire story, but
No, I don't
waves
want you
have
to.
been a constant theme in my life. The relentless tides of grief, the turbulent storms of addiction, and eventually the quiet stillness that follows the storm. Sometimes the stillness is filled with joy. Sometimes it's filled with sorrow. Yet no matter what, the same ocean that threatened to pull me under held the waves that eventually carried me forward. The ocean's unpredictability, power, and capacity for destruction have always captivated me. It mirrors life in a way that nothing else does. The darkness beneath the surface encompasses a world of unknowns, just like life and the future holds a story that's yet untold. Just like the tides, life ebbs and flows. Sometimes the waves crash down with such a force that it nearly seems impossible to swim. Other times, you grab a surfboard, catch a perfect wave, and ride it all the way in. Both experiences come from the same ocean, just as heartbreak and healing, grief and grace, love and hate exist within the same story. I carry this with me every day, etched permanently onto my arm. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. My life is a reminder that the waves will come and go, but I am never alone in the storm, because for every tide of grief, there is always a wave of grace coming to carry me forward.
Oof. Ashley, that is powerful. That metaphor of the ocean crashing. Oh, I got the chills. I got the chills. That you've given me the chills 3 times now. And this has been one episode. Oh my gosh. Uh, what a fabulous way to end it, Ashley. That was so profound. You are a beautiful writer.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really are. So thank you so much, Ashley. This has just been a fantastic conversation, and I know a ton of people will get so much help out of this episode. So thank you so much for sharing your courageous story. Ashley, if people want to find you, ask you a question, get your book, which came out today, November 18th. Congratulations. What's the best place to locate you?
Yeah, they can find me on my website. This is ashleyjo.com, ASHLEYJO. And my Instagram is at this is Ashley Joe.
This is Ashley Joe. Unbelievable. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening. Please, guys, if you can, hit that subscribe button, share it to someone that you think it might help. Okay. Please, if you can follow me I'm actually on TikTok. It's actually Will Gordon Sober. I just started it about a month ago. You can check out that. I've been making some little fun content there. And on Instagram, it's just at the Willpower Podcast. And, and yeah, guys, just subscribe, like, share, do all of it, please. That'd be awesome. It's just a really easy way to help me out. Thank you guys for watching this one, and be on the lookout for many, many more episodes coming soon. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.